Now, we started a conversation yesterday. Something didn't make sense to us. This Saglemi housing project, $200 million to produce or provide 5,000 homes in Saglemi, about 30 minutes after the Pram Pram Junction. But instead of 5,000 homes, we got 1,500 uncompleted homes. Homes that are not habitable. This government said they smelled a rat. So investigations were done, people were taken to court. But the 1,500 units were still not completed for habitation. We learned just last week that according to the housing minister, it would cost us $114 million to make them habitable. So we asked the question, we asked you the question, would you be willing to afford an apartment in Saglemi for the numbers, for the figures that government was telling us it was going to cost? Altogether, some $210,000 per unit on average. Can you afford it? These are the answers you gave us.
$200 million project, Saglami. We are chasing the people who have eaten part of that money. And the original money, $200 million, is going waste. If it is your personal pocket money, would you leave it to get waste?
So all that nonsense that they are saying affordable to workers is for their own cronies. Because no worker can buy this house or can rent this house. Every month, if I'm to pay about, say, 2,000 Ghana cedis, how much is my salary? Even if it is for 1,000 years, I cannot pay.
It's always surprising when people say these people are incompetent, these people are incompetent. They are not. They know exactly what to do. But when they do the right thing, they will not be able to have their cut. So they will continue to misbehave.
Over the years, we have all seen that government is not good at this. At least we know of Abayime, as others have said. We know of Aboagye. We know of the sugar factory at Commander. We know of Saglemi. So now, the civil society and the media, we should not allow them to start. When they start, we know how it will end. So we should not allow them to start at all.
If you don't even want to complete it, give it out. We want to use it. Look, I have lived in a village for more than 15 years without water and electricity. I can occupy that place and live comfortably than leaving it to rot like that.
So that's what you had to say about it. Undoubtedly, a lot of you were quite upset by the turn of events. Now, the former president, John Mahama, made a comment about how, it was a slap in the face of Ghanaians for President Akufo-Addo to commit almost $500 million to a cathedral project when Saglemi has not been completed. The Minister for Works and Housing has responded to that, and in that response he has indicated that government intends to work with the private sector to let that project bring that project to life. We're going to discuss that proposal and see how feasible it is today on our show. And we'll be joined by Mr. Aboagye Danyansah, who is the CEO of Danny's Estate and Construction. He's actually an award-winning estate and construction company CEO. In 2014 and 2017, he won the Ghana Property Awards. And he's also the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association. He joins us live. Mr. Aboagye Danyansah, good morning to you.
Good morning, Kojo. Hope you are doing good, my friend.
We're fantastic, and it's great to have you on the show. We'll be hearing a lot more from Mr. Aboagye Danyansah shortly. So, otherwise, we would have carried Saglemi and brought it to cantonments.
Well, you can't do that, unfortunately. Even though in today's modern world, you could actually have an Adaka-like kind of a house where if you get land, you could just move it and go there. But you see, Kojo, this is the point. We're talking about some 5,000 apartments or houses, which is not happening. We have 1,500 houses. Now, let's look at how much it will cost us to actually make Saglemi habitable. That's the most important thing now. Because the minister has been talking about the private sector. He says government has been, holding discussions with the private sector. Now, this is how much we're told. 46 million to complete infrastructural work, which includes water, electricity, and drains to mitigate flooding. Now, this is something we should have done as part of the project. Then a further $68 million is required to complete the buildings and other essential on-site infrastructure works like the waste holding bay, sewage treatment plants, and the development of socio-economic and civic infrastructure, such as basic schools, clinics, and shops. Let me start off from the basic schools, clinics and shops. First of all, in today's world, when you can have commercial plots, that is not, a headache government should be having today. Why? Because government can build a Saglemi housing project, complete it, and then sell certain aspects. In fact, what the developers actually do these days is that they leave portions as commercial plots. So you come there, or they sell that part to you, bearing in mind that if you were to build a school in an area like Saglemi, which have 5,000 houses, so you would have families coming in there, you have pupils coming to school, and so all things being equal, you're going to do what? You're actually going to have a return on your investment in a short time. 2, if you were to build a clinic, for instance, okay, how about even right from the building, you invite people to come and build clinics. Now, they would purchase land from you, build the clinic, and take care of the health needs of the people. Because if you have 5,000 people, yes, you need to have a facility that can take care of the emergency when there is an emergency. So that's very, very important. Shops. Now, this is the point. In a lot of the development literature, the conversation is that once you start development, okay, once people live within an area, you expect the provision of services within that area. Now, how do you get the provision of services? You get the provision of services when people begin to provide these services. If you have 5,000 people at Saglemi, 5,000 houses, which even if it translates to 3 persons in every apartment on the average. If you have 15,000 people in that area, I would want to take a business there and go and provide them with services. In fact, I would want to establish, if I am a financial institution, I would want to establish, for instance, have an ATM card there. I would consider having even a bank there.
You would have banks for 15,000 people.
15,000 people.
Yeah.
So that in itself provides you an opportunity. And so the building of shops in itself is something that the private sector, would be willing to take. Now, in the development literature, you've talked about, location quotient. We've talked about the fact that when the concentration of jobs or anything within an area is more than what the national average, what it means is that more people will be coming to that area to engage in that particular job. If that happens, you'd have a lot of people coming into your locality. What that means is that there should be the provision of services. In fact, the argument we had when we were creating new regions was that we were going to use that as growth poles to trigger development. In today's world, what people have done is to use developments of this nature, as you've seen in Saglemi, to actually become something like a spread effect on other parts. So once there are people living around Saglemi, the area even before Saglemi, now if you have about 15,000 persons living in Saglemi, the areas before Saglemi will become hot cake. Okay, so that in itself is one thing that would help. Of course, we'd have conversations about, building a transport service and everything. And these are things that the private sector would take up on itself. Now, let's get to another critical issue. The government is talking about, okay, we want to engage the private sector. What sort of engagement are we looking at here? Now, if government says we need to spend $114 million to complete it, the first question you ask yourself is, which person would want to put money into Saglemi? Would the person be willing to buy from government first of all, before spending an additional $114 million? So that's where the question comes in. What are the options available? Can government then say, I want to release it, you complete it, and then we share the profits? That's a possibility. You say, okay, so I have this, and that my equity funding for, say, 30, 40, 50% of 50% share of the Saglemi housing project, you come in and complete that. Yesterday you talked about the Nyamidria apartments, which on the average would go for between $55,000 to $60,000. Now, there's a promo of $49,000. So what I'm trying to say is that on the average, if I look at all of it and I find the mean, you're looking at about $55,000. Now, if we were to use that, okay, which comes before Saglemi?
Way before.
Now, if we were to use that, $114 million at 55,000 can get you 2,072 apartments. And this includes the purchase of land. And this includes profits. Now, real estate companies would make huge profits on their sales to you. So that would get me asking the question, is the $114 million a value for government or the real value that we need? I'll explain. If a private person were to build an estate, huge one, construct drains, of course you may argue that the drains may not be as huge as what governments may construct because of the sizes. But if a private person is building this, he still would have drains. They do it. And if they would sell, they could sell at between 50 to 60,000 and still make profit. And they make profit bearing in mind that they purchase these lands. The cost of completion of the Saglemi housing project, which is estimated at $114 million, is it because it's government commissioning it, or that would be the value? We'll be finding out shortly what that value will be.
Yes. Now, just before we bring in our guest,
You go ahead.
Just a quick analysis of these numbers. And you broke it down for us. You said that out of the 114 million, $46 million of it is for infrastructural works.
Yeah.
That is outstanding infrastructural works leading to the development. So water, electricity, and these things. 68 million is for on-site works and completion. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is interesting for one particular reason. You see, this makes it hard for anybody seeking to do business with government to trust the numbers they are being given. Because if you recall, the original Ridge Management Solutions report, which covers this project, at the time of the initial appraisal, was that they had actually completed 636 units fully, and they were fully completed and habitable. The remaining units in phase one was 1,412, right, out of the 1,500 and whatever, and they were at 70 to 80% completion. Okay, some infrastructure work had already been done, including main trunk lines. Okay, so if you now say that you have to come and do on-site works of 68 million for properties that are 70 to 80% complete, in fact, some of them are fully complete, you've already got your trunk lines in there. What are you spending this 68 million on? What is that? What is that figure to be spent on? Now, the other thing is this. In the estate development, you break down the value of the money you are spending per acre. Okay, so 300-acre development, you are saying is going to cost 114 million to make it habitable. That's $500,000 per acre. I mean, how is that? Which businessman or woman will buy into this deal?
Frank, once again, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Winston. I'm glad to be with you today.
Great. So let's look at something. I mean, first of all, we'll get to the options and everything, whether we should go into some partnership, whether we should sell it, or whether we should let it go. But let's look at how much it would cost us to make the place habitable. Some $114 million. You are a real estate developer. Tell us what you can do with that.
Winston, thank you very much. Let me say a very good morning to your listeners and viewers. First of all, I want to start by letting us understand how housing has become a challenge and a problem to us as Ghanaians.
Sure.
And not to take you far, quite recently, we had the population housing census. And you are aware that it was stated categorically that 10 million Ghanaians are living under sheds, under kiosks, under bridges, under trees, in front of people's shops. 10 million Ghanaians. This is close to almost about 2.7 million units. So the earlier quotes that we seek to do, where we were quoting 1.5 million units, it was somewhere around 2015. Now, the housing deficit in Ghana is 2.7 million units. And that is the problem. We have carriers who do not have places to stay. And if we want to put up structures, we are wasting money on these units, which to me doesn't really make sense. Look, per area valuations, $140 million can give me 2,500 housing units. Let me state that again.
Sure.
$140 million can give me a completed 2,500 housing units completed for people to move in. So it doesn't really make sense when we are getting these figures. And personally, there's been inconsistencies with these figures. And I would want to point it out.
Okay.
Your listeners and viewers come to appreciate it. You know, when this project was taken over, or probably there was a change of government, we all heard that the amount that had already gone in was $179 million. And the contractors were Maya Galvao and Ricardo da Silva, who the Constructora, the company from Brazil. So I'm sure they are there, and they could be contacted. They have stated reasons why they left the project. And even before the government started or wanted to start to go to court, they had brought tests to start. They are canceling the agreement because of delays in the project. And this is construction. A day delay in construction runs into millions of cedis. Not to talk of 1,500 units have been left abandoned, where 600, we are told, were completed for almost 2 years, 3 years. So to the figures, Aboagye told us, per the valuation from the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, at the time they came to power, that was 2018, gave a valuation of $64 million, the existing structures that were there. And so they came to a conclusion that the ex-government, the NDC government, embezzled $114 million. Winston, do you remember?
I remember.
Good. So if Ghana Institution of Surveyors gave a valuation of the existing property at $64 million, today, Honorable Asenso Boakye is telling us that AESL is saying that we need $114 million to complete the unit. So my question here is that, what is the current valuation for the existing property asset today?
Okay.
Are you getting my question?
Yes, I get it.
So let's ask the minister, what is AESL's valuation for the existing structures as deteriorated, as they are saying today? Is it still the one that was quoted by Ghana Institution of Surveyors? Or it is more than that? If it is more than that, then I am today telling you on your notice, I doubt the value that the minister is saying. Can Ghanaians push for other valuers to come into this project? Can we make it broad so that other valuation companies would have access and give us other figures? Because per valuation, you ask yourself whether the property that you are valuing on the open market value, if you were the buyer, will you buy the property at that cost? That is what we use. I'm a land economist by profession. I've been in this industry for more than 15 years. And if you are valuing properties, you ask yourself, if you were the buyer on the open market value, will you buy the property as you are quoting? If no, then it doesn't make sense.
Okay. But Frank, I mean, you make a point. You say that with $114 million, you can build 2,500 houses. And these
Yes.
2,500 houses would have, drains, water, electricity, sewage, and everything in place, including
everything for people to move in. We have done these things over the years, and I have articles to prove it. They are online, they are everywhere. In 2017, we wrote how 5,000 units at a cost of 200 was feasible. That's 200 million, of which that would include everything. So if you tell me to come in as a private developer, these are the questions I'll ask you. What is the current state of the value of the property existing? Then I would rather do my bill of quantities from the current stage to the completion stage. It is not you to tell me how much I should bring on board to complete the project. It's very funny. We are engineers and we know what to do when we come on site. You give me access to the property, I value the current state of the value of the property, and then I will do my cost estimate as to how much I will use to complete the project. Then I'll ask again, what went into the decision in 2021 when Minister Aboagye visited the property and told Ghanaians that we will need 32 million to complete it? And now he's telling me, or Ghanaians, that from 2021 to 2023, the value has jumped from 32 million to 114 million. Where are these figures coming from? So these are the inconsistencies. Again, let me push you a bit to some technicalities that you and Kojo were discussing this morning. Winston, from you, and I'm using you because you told us, we have heard in the media, but once you have quoted it, I would want to prove that it is what the minister said. He said $46 million goes into what? Water, electricity, and drains. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you also said that $68 million goes into sewage plants, and then the building itself, which is the social amenities, which is the civil works, and then what again? Shops.
A clinic and school.
Yes.
Can you do this for your listeners? Kindly check the meaning of sewage plants and sewage system. There are two different things we are talking about. Somebody is playing technicalities here. Tell Minister Aboagye that engineers know that drainage system falls under our sewage system. So when you are talking about sewage system, it encompasses, it composites drainage system. So you cannot come and tell me that somebody has divided into two and that 46 million includes drainage system and another 68 million also includes sewage plants, which is still the embodiment of drainage system and water resources within the facility. So who is giving us these technical errors or misinforming the sector minister to better misadvise the president of the country that Saglemi should be sold? I think we should kick against the sale of Saglemi. We should not sell it today. Let us not sell it tomorrow. Leave it for Ghanaians. At the end of the day, I'll come to the solutions that we can do with Saglemi as existing. And trust me, any developer now who would put money in Saglemi is going to make losses. It's an outright purchase. Government has to do its role. What is the role? Look, like they have done with Bokwa, but there was one they did not do, of which they know. And the developers who have taken it up knows it's a challenge. But because of political expediency and victimizing, they don't want to talk. How can you give the person availability of land? Fantastic. And then the utmost priority is for government to give what we call off-takers guarantee or off-takers agreement. Who are the off-takers of property? Winston, were you told the off-takers are those who are going to the property? Do we know them? Or they just said to Ghanaians?
To Ghanaians, they're going to be selling to Ghanaians.
No. So at this point, that is where we have failed as a country all this while. The government has to give off-takers guarantee. For example, we have the Teachers Fund. For example, we have the Senate Pensions Fund. These will come in as off-takers agreements for the civil servants. So then I, the developer, will not take the burden of going to look for a buyer. Other than that, these developers who took the property, and I know some of them, they are my good friends, are in Europe and America looking for buyers to go and buy affordable housing property in Ghana. Does it make sense? We are building properties for less privileged in society, people who do not have places to stay, people who are living under bridges, people who are under trees, people who are sleeping in front of people's shops, retirees who do not have places to stay, millions of Ghanaians who have gone on retirement and do not have homes. And we are saying that the developers will go and look for a buyer. And if I am a private person, why won't I be happy if I want to take a property and go and, because I'm looking for the best form of returns on my investment. But as a Ghanaian, this is not sustainable for the development of our country. And I'm kicking against the sale of Saglemi. That's right. Somebody somewhere is planning something that we don't know. At the end of the day, a buyer somewhere will come. Right. If it was to be anywhere in Europe or in America, this property in front of the general public will be a public auction. Now, what is PPA saying? That they've been given the mandate by cabinet to offset the property, meaning to sell it. And Ghanaians will be the utmost losers. My other point is that the best way that we can go with this property is one, let us attach a mortgage component. That was done at that time by Ghana Home Loans, now First National Bank, to the composite agreement, so that when the investor is coming, it is not outright sale, but the investor comes in as a partner with government in a form of equity funding. Yesterday, I listened to your discussion with Kojo, and Kojo gave details of how the loan would be paid. And they said the loan should have been within a period of 5 years, and then after 2 years moratorium, repayments can... Look, loans for construction have ceased in the European and American markets. They will not give you loans to go and build affordable housing units anymore. It is now a social need, and for that matter, it is equity partnership between the private investor and the government for a long term, minimum 30 years, maximum 60 years. So within a long term, when these mortgages are running, the developer or the private man knows that their shares in the property is not an outright ownership, but a 50% or 60% or 40% share. It is still belonging to government of Ghana. So that is where we have to look at it from. And these mortgages would have to span over a period of 15 to 30 years. So let me give you a clearer example again. You mentioned that an average civil servant, as at yesterday per your discussion, average civil servant earns how much? I think you said 3,000 cedis.
Yes. We worked with the average of 3,000 cedis.
So the 3,000 cedis, if used per what we know, because I was part of the 2015, the National Housing Policy definition of affordable housing, where the individual should not spend more than 30% of his or her annual income on housing. Yeah. When you have deducted electricity and water, which is utility. So if you are using 30%, it means that the 3,000 you mentioned, there should be a 30% component that goes into either rental or purchase of a house. So every mortgage company that is coming as attached to this affordable housing unit from the scratch should not take more than 30% of the salaries of the individuals who are applying for these mortgages. Please, is it clear?
Yes.
So, yes. So if less than 30% is what is going in, then you cannot do outright purchase. What you do is rent to own. It is done in Europe, in America, in most developed countries. So the average teacher, who most of them I know do not even earn up to the 3,000, get a house which is decentralized, like the Egypt way. Egypt used 4 years to build 4 million housing units for their citizens. Are they not in Africa? Don't they have the president who, as we have presidents in Ghana? What stopped us to also reasoning, excuse me to use the word, like these people who are also countries in Africa? So then the teacher pays an amount like 500 cedis, 700 Ghana cedis for the next 15 to 20 years or to 30 years before retiring. So currently, if you are more than 40 years and you are a teacher, your risk of paying more is high because the duration that you have to go on retirement is less than the 30 years, which in this case, retirement age is 60 years. So you have less than 30 years, which is 20 years, to go on retirement. So if the one who is 25 years and is the teacher is paying, say, 700, you, the one who is 40 years, your risk factor is you pay more than the 700 because the duration that will take you to go on retirement is low.
Right. Right.
And in the long term, the investor will be getting his returns on investment.
Okay.
Not in the short term.
Frank, I think you've given us quite a lot to start with, several commercial angles being brought in here. Now we're gonna take a few messages, and when we come back, the thing that I would like us to do together, Frank, is try and make these numbers work. If indeed we are to have affordable housing at Saglemi, what should the numbers be? What are the viable options available to government to ensure that Ghanaians who today are sleeping outside people's gates and shops can actually live at Saglemi feasibly? So, I mean, we see the size of the problem. We understand the problem, Mr. Danyansah. Now, how do we fix it? You are against government selling Saglemi, which means it must be made into an affordable housing facility. How do we go about doing that? I mean, we've blown 200 million on it already. But how do we go about ensuring that they can be made habitable and people can afford to live in them and pay off, whatever mortgages or whatever arrangements are made?
Okay, Kojo. Yes, so I have the immediate solutions, which first and foremost, I think in my conversation, I made snippets of the mortgage scheme. So let the government understand that they are in dying need. And someone who is in dying need is a beggar. A beggar has no choice. In this case, Ghanaians want Saglemi, and we don't want to lose it. So we went for a loan, which we have already not been able to service. So we understand that it is debt now. The only way out is equity funding from an investor who is willing to go the long term with us. So we determine the percentage shares for this investor and that of the government of Ghana. That is one. Two, a mortgage finance company who would partner the investor, whether in-house or a Ghanaian owned, or probably come along with the investor for a long term, maximum 60 years, like we do the BOT contracts in the district assemblies. We are able to give contracts to people for 60 years. I know you know, Kojo. So what is stopping us from signing agreements that the person becomes a partner for a period of 60 years, gets his returns and leave the scene, and the property returns back to the government of Ghana? The other one will be the assurance of an off-taker agreement. So this is how they can go about Saglemi. The Ministry of Works and Housing, together with government, can open up a scheme currently that any Ghanaian who is interested in Saglemi, we are doing a registration, come and write your name. Any Ghanaian who is interested in Saglemi, within a certain period, come and write your name. When these lists are compiled, they are termed as the off-takers, whether teachers, whether plumbers, whether organizers, whoever. When these off-takers come on board, we know the total number of people who have come. That is what the investor will base on to say that I and my mortgage company coming will be able to give these people who have come an opportunity to take these houses. We have no option of an outright purchase. It will not work. No Ghanaian can afford it at this stage. A clear example is Asokore Mampong. As it stands, when Snitch completed most of them, it has ended up in the hands of rich people who have bought it and in turn renting out to the poor people again. So what stops the government by going direct rental to own? So that if you, Kojo, you go for 1 or 2 bedroom house, you rent it and be paying as rent 700 cedis, 1,500 Ghana cedis for the next 20 years. Do you lose anything? In an untimely event that you are no more, your next of kin, whether your spouse or your children who are above the age of 18 years and are in the working class, will come and service the mortgage. Is this too big for us to do as a country? That is the immediate solution. The long-term solution for the Ghana, in general Ghana housing, is one. In advanced countries, we are going green. Kojo, now we are replacing iron rods with bamboo. Okay? And bamboo is stronger than iron rod, as you know, by 20,000 pounds in terms of its tensile strength. Let me repeat it again. Bamboo is stronger than iron rods by 20,000 pounds in its tensile strength. It is being used in Europe, in high structures, in buildings, in placement of iron rods. So where is that traditional way of we having been psyched by some people that the only way to do reinforcement is to include iron rods? Kojo, do you remember, or are you aware that when you are doing your building and you get to where the normal term, flow, the flooring stage, the casting of the concrete or the soffit at the top, when we put the iron rods there and we cast the concrete, what do you normally see that is used to support the concrete?
Bamboo.
Yeah.
Bamboo.
Yeah.
So this should tell us that this is so strong that it can be used. And I am here in Europe, we've done the research, and it is viable. And somebody will be somewhere, excuse me to say, refusing to think and say that Russia-Ukraine war and that we are not getting iron rods from Ukraine. And for that matter, it is becoming expensive in construction. Look, we have options. In Belgium, in Netherlands, in Ireland, they are using bricks. When I was growing up in my village, I got to see third houses with bricks, and the roofing was bamboo. Now, we have manufactured bricks into smaller sizes where we can use. Now we've moved from the laterite, which is the Atakwame, and we are using bricks. When you go to PNUST, they have manufactured it by CSIR. We are not using them. Let us go into these ones to make units of housing affordable. Let us decentralize it, do it in every district in Ghana. It is possible. And per my proposal, 5,000 units in every district in Ghana would have covered almost about 1.3 million units within a certain duration. If we are saying we will do it in 4 years, by 4 years we have cut the housing deficit by half. This is not government money. This is not government loan. This is government partnership with investors who are willing to invest in affordable housing as a social need for Ghanaians. The other part will be the last bit where the mortgages also come in as with this type of construction unit. It stands now, Kojo, government can't be trusted. Do you know, or are you aware, in 2018, they took 150 acres of land from some chiefs in the Brown Ahafo, which is Yamfo, and then Dua Yankwanta, Hene, for 100,000 units every year for the next 10 years. Please, do you remember?
I remember this report. So this was in the
Honorable Frida Prempe
Brown Ahafo
was
region.
there. Yes. And they said they have secured $5 billion to fund 100,000 units of houses. Dr. Mahmoud Baumia was the one who did the presentation. And they were going to build 100,000 units for the next 10 years. And that was in 2018. In 2021, Madame Frida Prempe was the Minister of Works and Housing. And then she herself went with, they said there was a company by name Yatrim Tourism AS, a Turkish company, in partnership with AS Konda Company Limited. a construction company in Ghana, and they were going to construct 100,000 to 250,000 units of houses from 2021 every year. They took 250 acres of land from Yamfuhene, Tanosohene, and Biayankwantahene. Where are these housing units? We are in 2023. And where is the money? If indeed $5 billion was secured, why are people just throwing figures about as if people in Ghana do not read, or we don't even learn, or we don't know what we do? And when we in the industry, we hear these things, we have aches in our stomachs because this has to happen. Our leaders tell us, and we don't see it happening. Where is the $5 billion they said they have secured? Was it a lie? So the pragmatic approach is that any government who is willing to come to power should tell Ghanaians how many units of houses you are going to put up within the next duration of your term. If it's 4 years, ensure it is done, completed, and Ghanaians take it in an affordable way, as I have stated, not outright purchase. It should be in a way that the mortgage system will start working. If it's possible for us to bring back construction bank, we have to bring back construction bank to finance these mortgages. Other than that, the commercial banks who are into mortgage in Ghana should all come together and assist the government and all Ghanaians to achieve this goal. Else, we should not allow them to start any of these projects because they have showed us that they can't be trusted, and when they start these projects, they cannot finish it.
In terms of business viability, are you saying that by your analysis, and by the way, if you just joined us, we're talking to Mr. Frank Aboagye Danyansah. He's a construction expert. He's the Ashanti Regional Chairman of GREDA, Ashanti Regional President of GREDA. So, Frank, are you saying that government will not find an investor to come and pump 114 million into Saglemi and then do whatever he wants with it? Government will not find someone willing to just buy it?
No, the investor will be doing so at his or her own risk. Whoever wants to go, and I've given you the figure that per our calculations of housing units that we are securing, and we have done that for Kenya, we've done that for South Africa, we've done that for Zambia, we are still doing it, even in Ghana. And I remember in 2017, I led a team, these corporate finance companies, to come to Ghana. And there was a small cutting of 5,000 housing units. It's private owned. And it is the basic that these researches are being done. And it's $200 million as it was stated. But these $200 million, if it can give me 5,000, it means that $100 million can give me 2,500 units of housing. On not just 2,000 acres at Saglemi. On just almost about, because some of them will be high-rise. So almost about 100 acres of land can accommodate this unit. 40 acres of land in districts can accommodate 1,000 units of housing. So what are we saying? So any investor would run these numbers. And I have challenged anyone, including the Minister of Western Housing, that if he thinks that he has enough evidence to say we should sell, I and my team have enough evidence to debate him that we should not sell Saglemi. And for that matter, investors are willing to come and pump in money if it is equity funding partnership and not outright purchase.
Right. Okay, I think this is a good place for us to pull the brakes on this. We are going to continue this conversation tomorrow, no doubt, because this is a very important national issue to be dealt with. Mr. Frank Aboagye Danyansah, I want to say a big thank you to you. We appreciate your time with us. Let's continue this conversation